In March 2003, 18 beavers were let loose on the Ebro, where La Rioja, Navarra and Aragón meet. They were the first wild beavers in Spain in 400 years. No permit, no scientist. Someone opened the crates in the dark and walked away. Within a season, the banks changed. Willows lay felled at a clean angle. Small dams of mud and branch crossed the quiet side channels. Water pooled where it had run straight for a lifetime. Nobody had ordered any of it. By 2020, those 18 animals were a population spread across 5 autonomous communities, and the numbers came from the very governments trying to catch them. The first official survey, run by La Rioja in 2007 and 2008, found beavers along nearly 90 kilometers of the Ebro and put their number between 28 and 41. Today, they hold more than 300 kilometers of the main river and several hundred more of its tributaries. All of it happened while the state was removing them. Between 2008 and 2017, regional teams trapped 216 beavers. The population grew anyway. 18 became a river system. And the animal Spain spent more than a decade trying to erase is now, by law, a protected native species. This is how 18 illegal beavers outlasted a government and forced Spain, and then the European Union, to change their minds about what belongs in a river. To see why they matter, you first have to see what a Spanish river had quietly lost. Walk the middle Ebro, and it looks alive. Water moving, herons in the shallows. But the channel runs in a single hard line, cut off from the land it once flooded, held in place by weirs and mill dams centuries old. Spain had spent generations straightening and blocking its rivers. Then, in 2006, it launched a national strategy for river restoration, and much of the work was simple. Take the old weirs out, put fish passes in, let the water move. One by one, structures came down, like the Retuerta Dam on the Aravel, which reopened a run of riverfish had been shut out of for decades. So here is the strange background. Spain was paying dam by dam to unbuild the barriers in its water, and then something arrived that builds them for free. Meet the Eurasian beaver, and picture the right animal, because most people picture the wrong one. This is not the North American beaver that floods whole valleys. The European beaver is a different species. It feeds mostly on grasses and soft shrubs less than 5 centimeters thick. It builds modest dams, usually on smaller tributaries, not across great rivers. It works at the edges. A century ago, it had almost vanished, hunted across the continent for its fur, its meat, and a scent gland once prized in medicine and perfume. Perhaps 1,000 survived. From that low point, careful reintroductions rebuilt it into one of Europe's quiet conservation successes, roughly 1.2 million animals today. But not in Iberia. Here, the record runs out around the close of the 16th century. For 400 years, the one animal on the continent that physically rebuilds a river was simply missing from Spain, until someone put it back in the dark. The discovery was almost an accident. In 2004, a biologist working along the River Aragón noticed tree trunks marked with teeth. Beavers. In Spain. DNA from the first animals caught in La Rioja was analyzed at the University of the Basque Country, and the trail led to Central European farm stock, the Bavarian line. Who carried them over the border was never settled. One person was eventually fined €500 for moving a protected species without a license. €500 for an act that reshaped a river system. What makes the beaver unusual is not one trait, but 3 kinds of work, running at once. It fells. It cuts woody stems and small trees, opening the canopy and throwing up dense new growth. It dams. On small channels, it piles branch and mud into low walls that spread the water sideways, turning one thin line into a patch of wetland. And it digs. It cuts canals and burrows that pull water into the land and hold it there. Put those together, and you get something no restoration budget easily buys. Across the species range, studies tie beaver wetlands to slower floods, to water held through drought, to ground that resists fire, and to more insects, amphibians, and birds. And here is the sting. Much of what the beaver does for free is exactly what Spain was hiring engineers to recreate. What did it do on the Ebro itself? Here, the honest answer is not a tidy chart. This population was illegal and unwanted, and for years the response was to trap it, not study it. So what Spain measured was the animal and the fight over it. The removal was real and expensive. Those 216 beavers broke down as 102 in La Rioja, 83 in Navarra, 31 in Aragón. Navarra's share alone cost around 131,000 euros. And still they spread, because trapping a fast-breeding animal along hundreds of kilometers of connected water is nearly impossible. There was even a detail that undercut the whole effort. Where the beavers built, their dams held water back during floods and drew visitors to banks that had drawn none before. Then the ground shifted. The European Union recognized the beaver as native to Spain. The animal being removed was legally supposed to be here. And the spread went on. A young beaver reached the upper Duero in 2021. By 2023, there were beavers in the Guadalquivir, far to the south, and on the Tagus and the Tormes, which runs toward Portugal. But the fight was never really about the beaver. It was about who decides. The officials had a case. Their point was precedent. As the head of La Rioja's Environment Department told the newspaper El País, if a beaver had crossed the Pyrenees on its own, there would be nothing to say but welcome. This was different. This was a protected animal smuggled in and dumped by unknown hands, and if that stood, anyone could release anything and dare the state to undo it. There were ecological fears too, for the otter and for the European mink, one of the most endangered mammals alive. The Union itself argued, strangely, that the beaver was outside its normal range, an animal out of place on rivers it had lived on since before Rome. The other side was just as real. This was a native species coming home after 4 centuries. The eradication was draining public money to fight an animal that, elsewhere in Europe, governments were paying to bring back. And it was failing. Neither argument has ever been put to rest. Step back and the scale is hard to hold. 400 years of absence, 18 animals, 2 decades. A river, then a second basin, then a third, then the edge of a fourth. Kits are being born now on tributaries where no official ever approved a beaver, to parents who will never know their kind was once hunted from these banks at public expense. They will keep pushing downstream, toward a border their ancestors last crossed in another century. The biology is settled. What is unresolved is US, 18 beavers, a crime with no clear author and a €500 fine. The beaver felled the willow. The water spread across the ground. The wetland filled with life. The law in the end gave way. But the beaver is not the only banished animal rewriting the map of Spain. In our next video, the wolf and a line drawn across the whole country by a single river, where a change in the law flipped the animal from hunted to protected, and then started to flip back. If 18 smuggled beavers could force a government to change its mind, wait until you see what happened when Spain tried to decide which bank a predator was allowed to live on.